steps up. Ricketts is at the high point. Jones. Aromaterio has a lane. Nicholas Aromaterio, the shot. Scores! Holy jumping! The Italian stallion puts the puck in the back of the net. Mamma mia, Nicholas Aromaterio! So to keep it in and does. Callum Jones for Potts. At the blue line, kept in by the skate of Thomas Maya. Maya. Down low on the half course, he swings out in the slot for Potts. Kyle Potts has it, hangs on, now he shoots, scores! Holy jumping! How do you do? Kyle Potts puts the puck in the back of the net. Blades block that shot, and coming the other way is Alton McDermott. He's in on the breakaway, scores! Holy jumping! His grandfather, Paul Henderson, must be ecstatic about that one because Alton McDermott just scored his first career Buckland Cup final playoff goal. Has been pulled. The Dukes are in the Oakville zone. Zone salvage. Swung that around. The Blades are trying to tie this puck up. It goes into the corner. The Blades have a chance to get this out. Lions will tie it up. 10 seconds. Gilmore has it at the point. It's in. Tips. Just wide. 7 seconds. It's back in the corner. Ewing's back in. 3, 2, 1. The Oakville Blades. Holy jumping. Blades win. Blades win. Blades win. The Oakville Blades are Buckland Cup champions.
You're watching Mamma Mia! This is Fire Talk with Nicholas Fiore.
Welcome back, everybody, to episode number 21 of Mamma Mia! This is Fire Talk. I'm Nicholas Fiore, the Oakville Blades play-by-play broadcaster in the Ontario Junior Hockey League, and I have the honor joining me on this edition of the show, Sam Cosentino, Sportsnet CHL and NHL Draft Analyst. Sam, I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, Nick, great to be on. Always love talking hockey, especially when there's not a ton to watch, so thanks for having me.
Absolutely. How have you been during this pandemic? I know there wasn't much to talk about at the beginning, but obviously the NHL got going again. But how have you been?
I've been doing well, thanks. Family is keeping well, thank God for that. So we're just trying to do our part, trying to get outdoors as best we can while the weather's still good. But no, we've been lucky so far. So knock on wood, it stays that way. And yourself, how have you been?
Everyone's good. Everyone's good over here. Family's well. I'm just working away and getting my show going on. I miss being at the rink. That's for sure. So we just want to get going.
All of us who work in the game miss at the rink.
Absolutely. No matter what level you're at, you just want to. My last call was March 5th, and it feels like it's been a century ago. So just want to get back going, of course. For everyone that doesn't know you, obviously people in the industry and myself, I follow you, I know you, and I appreciate obviously you coming on. But just tell everyone your story, because to get to where you are today, Sam, you did a few things, and you had a lot of stuff on the path. Obviously, starting at Spring Arbor, and then with the Blue Jays, the Canadian baseball, at the Score, play-by-play for Montreal. Then you started in hockey as well in 1998, but you dabbled in baseball first. Rogers TV with the OHL, and then obviously with Sportsnet. So that's just a little brief. But tell myself as well. I would love to know how you got to obviously where you are today.
Well, when I was a young boy, my grandfather and my dad used to take me to the racetrack, Woodbine Racetrack. My grandfather owned some horses, and I fell in love with Darrell Wells, who was the track announcer there. And I used to take home some of the programs after the day of racing and our big Sunday night Italian family dinners. You might be familiar with some of those. And just started kind of messing around in the basement and whatever. And I always kind of knew I wanted to be in broadcasting from that point on. But I also had a keen interest in baseball and got started with the Blue Jays as a bat boy in 1987 at 16 years old. When I finished that job to pursue a baseball scholarship that had a broadcasting angle to it in Michigan. And so I did that for a little while, and then came back and had some people that I had known in the industry and got going. In 94, doing some work with the Blue Jays again, and then working at the Fan a little bit here and there, hosting a Junior Jays baseball radio show with one of my bosses now, Greg Sansoni. That was a weekly thing, and just kind of morphed into, wanting to do more broadcasting stuff. And although hockey wasn't the number one thing, there wasn't a lot of amateur baseball in the area in which to pursue the broadcasting. So I ended up doing lots of stuff with local Rogers in Brampton and Mississauga. I did some radio stuff in Barrie, working with guys like the legendary Bill Cole, was a big part of 680 News for a long time, and Bruce Ferguson, and Mike Kelly went on to do a lot of good things in the States, and just kind of kept at it while still working with the Blue Jays, and then morphed into the Score in '99 and '02, and finished up with the Blue Jays, '03 Canadian Baseball League, '04 Montreal Expos, and then '05 and '06 Sportsnet approached me about doing some junior hockey, and that turned into doing some stuff with lacrosse and baseball, and then basically in 2013, all baseball was put aside and kind of focused on hockey, and added the draft element in 2014 to my profile, and 15 years later, 14 Memorial Cups later, and 5 drafts in the books. This is where we stand, Nick.
Absolutely. But you weren't just, a play-by-play. You kind of started in that role, but you're an author, a writer. You do stories as well, basically a journalist, really, overall. Well, did you ever decide, did I want to be a journalist at the end goal, or a play-by-play broadcaster, or was it just whatever I follow and get into, I could love it and see where it goes?
Well, baseball broadcast and play-by-play was kind of where I wanted to be, but at that point there was only 2 major league teams. There were very few minor league teams, and I'm pretty close to my family, so I didn't really want to leave. I applied for a couple of jobs, Kansas City, Florida. I applied for a job with Lancaster, an A-ball team in California, and none of that stuff really came to fruition. So as long as I was broadcasting and was happy, I wanted it to be in baseball, but I knew that was going to be a tough go. And then finally that opportunity came about in 2004, although some of it was done remotely. Some of it was done live at the Big O in the final season of the Expos in Montreal. And then I got lucky enough to be part of the Jays broadcast for 5 years. And, I was the one who was the original co-host of Baseball Central at Noon, which is a show that still goes on today and the Fan Network in Toronto. And I don't know, I just kept wanting to broadcast. So as part of the deal, writing was part of it. And, doing the junior hockey is just something that I really fell in love with. It was kind of where I got started and where I've established a lot of, good contacts and a nice network of people, and hold a lot of those friends that I've met through that part of the industry very close today.
Absolutely. And I was going to touch upon junior hockey with my next question. Being in junior hockey, I actually had a few OHL guys on my show. I spoke to Cole Perfetti as well, who was just drafted by Winnipeg, and I know obviously you've spoken to him and I've gotten to know him as well. How much do you truly love junior hockey, though, and seeing these kids, maybe following them from a little bit of a younger age into seeing them now develop and being drafted in the NHL, just like obviously a Cole Perfetti and a Quinton Byfield with the LA Kings from Sudbury? Is it just even though as a reporter, as an analyst, you got to be kind of unbiased, is it great to see these kids, if you've covered from young or younger, just gradually move up and try to make a name for themselves in the NHL?
Yeah, of course. Based in Ontario, for a long time, we were doing the OHL Cup. So, I'd attend the tournament as much as possible and just kind of get a lay of the land and see what the top prospects were all about. So, there was a point in time where we were able to see a lot of the Ontario kids from the age of 15, Byfield included, Perfetti included, move on up and into their NHL careers. So that part was really cool. Now we really just picked them up as 16-year-old rookies in the Ontario Hockey League, the odd exceptional player, Connor McDavid, Sean Day, Shane Wright now. Picked up those guys, Joe Valeno, as they came into the Canadian Hockey League, and followed them from either 15 or 16 right up through to their NHL careers. So there's a lot of joy in watching how that development goes from, just being a really good kid hockey player to growing into someone who becomes an active part of their community, an advocate for whatever they believe in, a big spokesperson for their respective teams, and then of course what they do on ice. So that's the most fulfilling part of the job, is being able to watch, these young talented guys grow into professional men, and to watch that progression it's pretty awesome.
Was that also, if you already answered, you probably did, but was that also what gravitated you to junior hockey and saying, okay, I want to be a journalist, I want to talk to these kids, I want to cover it on a full-time basis?
Well, what gravitated me was opportunity. That was the thing that drew me to it. And being with some of the local, the local area cable networks, mostly with Rogers, there was opportunity there. So that's really what was the drawing card. I didn't really know much about the Ontario Hockey League or the Canadian Hockey League when I first got into it. And then as you start watching, you're realizing, wow, these guys they're unbelievable. I'm getting a chance to watch these guys, for free and be able to do, call their games or be a host in their games or a color guy or whatever, and then get the opportunity to watch them kind of grow and blossom. So really what drew me to the game was the opportunity to be able to do it at that level. And now being able to do it on a national level at Sportsnet is kind of how it's blossomed.
And obviously, you want to blossom like that, and we all want to get back to the rink. And the one thing that we could be seeing soon is the World Juniors. Hopefully, that gets going again. Obviously, Canada announced their preliminary roster, and obviously they're going to break it down throughout camp and all that. What can you expect from the World Junior Tournament in general, but obviously specifically for Team Canada this season?
Well, it'll be interesting to see if everyone who is supposed to come is able to come, based on different countries, the budgets of those countries, the individual players in those teams. I mean, the idea is to have that bubble kind of set up so that once teams arrive, that they should be relatively safe, based on if nobody strays. So that's the kind of idea behind it, in terms of whether they're able to execute that or not. Obviously that remains to be seen. But when I look at the idea and the plans they have in place, it seems to be pretty foolproof. Now, it's still a long time from execution. The World Junior Camp's going to get going here next week. So that's obviously the starting point of that. And then from there, we'll see how things materialize. But I would expect as long as the team is able to be together this year, more so than they ever have, for a consecutive number of days, I mean, there's no reason why Canada shouldn't have a real good opportunity to defend its gold medal.
I was going to say, I mean, you look at the stat, and more than anyone covering junior hockey, that Team Canada roster could be very, very stacked with a lot of talent. So obviously you have Russia and USA and Sweden and the main guys, they're always there. But I can't see why Canada, if they, like you said, play together, they should probably be repeating for sure.
Yeah, and again, I just think it's more about really the time that they'll have together. A lot of these countries with their international teams get to spend so much time with one another, be it various tournaments, the international break, so on and so forth. But with Canada, they never really get that amount of time. They do a summer camp. Each of the three leagues gets together for the Canada-Russia thing in November that we normally have on Sportsnet. And then they go to a camp, beginning usually that second week of December. Yeah. But all this time that they're going to have leading up is really going to allow the staff to intimately know the players, where their strengths are, and really kind of hone in on that and be able to find chemistry amongst line mates rather than that be a rushed process. So again, with all that talent and all that time in terms of preparation, there's no reason why Canada shouldn't perform well.
Absolutely. You said you've been and covered 5 NHL drafts thus far in your broadcasting career. And obviously this past 2020 NHL draft was a little bit unusual, I would say, as a few others, of course, right? How was it for you? Did you see the draft pan out as it probably should have panned out, meaning the players went to maybe where they should have gone to, and just overall about this past NHL draft?
Yeah, it was a different experience. It was a fun experience. I mean, we had a blast doing it. I mean, it's nice when you're in a controlled setting like a studio to be able to do it the way we did it. With Berkey and adding Mike Fuda to our coverage is really good. Having Elliott in studio was good. Merrick's a very talented guy, and for whatever reason, Berkey and I have had some good chemistry. So we actually had a blast doing it. And the way the NHL handled it, and the way our producer Scott Lennox, our director Mike Mills handled things, going back and forth the NHL network and to all the various places was really unbelievable. So I enjoyed doing that a ton and being in that controlled setting. I mean, of course, you'd rather kind of be in the big rink atmosphere and have the kids experience the pinnacle of that, but that wasn't the case. So that didn't happen exactly the way the players wanted it. But I got to tell you, we had a blast doing it. I think we really made the best of it. I hope that the passion, the energy, and the fun came through on the broadcast. And for the most part, things played out the way we expected, other than the Columbus pick, which I guess it went semi-viral or viral, however you want to call it, when that pick was made. And I don't know, just took the honest approach there, and we actually had some fun with it.
The Toronto pick in Rodion Amirov, that raised eyebrows around Leafs Nation. Obviously, myself and my dad, as soon as I came out, I was in Leaf pajamas. So we were diehard Leaf fans from the get-go, right? Especially being Italian as well. Over here, we're like, hey, what's this pick? What's going on here? Because, sometimes you don't know these guys. My dad obviously didn't know the kid. Obviously, myself, I should be knowing the kid, and I did a little bit. Was that a pick where even you guys were like, what's going on, Maple Leafs? Or did you expect it?
I think a lot of people expected the pick to be more of that gritty type of physical player, because that's a need that and immediately needed to be addressed at that time by the Toronto Maple Leafs. But sometimes people get confused a little bit, and that player is not typically going to go into your lineup. And if he is, he's not going to be the player that you see him at the junior level. So Kyle Dubas obviously felt there was a way to address those needs with players at a more cost-effective basis that have had more experience by doing that in the free agent market or the trade market. In terms of continuing to draft for the future, I think his idea is skill is king, and Amirov, where he was picked, is probably exactly where he should be picked. And, I talked to some scouts that, based on a couple of different things, might have had him inside the top 10. So in terms from a pure skill perspective, there's no doubt that the player was picked in the neighborhood in which he should have been picked. Obviously the fan base is crying out for something a little bit different at that point, but I think they'll see Amirov down the road as being a guy who's going to be a lot along the lines of what they're seeing in that core group now, whether it's, a Marner, a Matthews, a Nylander, those type of players that are super, super skilled. And that seems to be the main thing when they're Maple Leafs are drafting. So not a big surprise at all for me, because, I know Toronto is not looking to address an immediate need with the pick in that draft. So really good player. I watched him a lot in last November, so got to know him fairly well. But no surprise there that he's already off to a pretty good start.
Exactly. He's off to a good start in the KHL. And as we're talking about the Leafs, I think that's what the Leafs fans stress about so much is get a guy for now. We want a guy for now. You had a few defensemen that were still up for grabs, right? We need to bolster the defense and the blue line. But, hey, the fans and us, we're all the critics here. But we're not there. We don't know. This is our job just to criticize, right? We're not there and figure it out. Just because we're talking about the Leafs, from your personal opinion, what do you think the Leafs can do this upcoming year? They added Jumbo Joe, which everyone loves that on a 1 year, but they've been doing a lot of 1 year guys. Aaron Dell, I think, adding him for exposed of the expansion draft for Seattle and Jimmy Vesey and just so many more guys. Wayne Simmons, but are these guys going to help now for the Toronto Maple Leafs, or is it let's see 1 year deals, ship them out, and get new guys for 1 year deals the following year because the cap is so tight?
Yeah, the cap, that's going to be the issue. So they might have to play this game here for a little while. And looking at what's going to be probably a truncated season this year, you look at an opportunity to utilize older players who may not be able to last the rigors of an entire season, yet you compact them into a tighter schedule, still find a way for them to get rest, and then still find a way for them to be successful. So I would expect the Leafs to be pretty good. I mean, a lot of it's going to be about how they gel and how they come together and how quickly that can happen. But when you're getting good character guys, usually that transition is rather seamless. Now, I guess the one part is going to be continuing to find the amount of ice time that everyone requires when you have a bunch of star players. So that'll be up to Sheldon Keefe to kind of sort through that. You look at their back end, they've addressed some things there that many people thought that they should address. Whether or not those are going to be the answers, that's also a wait and see type of thing. But there's no question on paper, this should be one of the best teams in the East. Having said that, the East is highly competitive. And, you look at New York, you look at Washington, the Rangers, the Islanders, Tampa Bay, they're all teams that aren't going away anytime soon. So competition is equally as tough as the team that looks to present itself on paper for Toronto.
Well, within the New York Rangers, I mean, I think they got a pretty good damn steal in Alexis Lafreniere getting that ball picked out of the lottery, right? I mean, was that skepticism around the league and around all of you guys at Sportsnet just saying, okay, the Rangers were not even close really to the bottom. They were in the bubble, and they get the first overall pick.
That doesn't bother me at all. I mean, everything this year has to be taken with a grain of salt. Everything is different. And you know, I get into some arguments with Berkey about this, about, you know, he's a big lottery guy that the worst teams should be rewarded with the highest level. And on some cases that can work itself out. I mean, obviously the league's trying to prevent tanking, and I understand that. But I have no problem with teams that are continually in the hunt getting rewarded once in a while. And I think this is the case that happened for New York. You know what? New York had to go into a bit of a rebuild. They knew that they were on the verge of making some really tough decisions. It was a team that was, you know, trying to rebuild on the fly. Jeff Gorton did an unbelievable job at doing that, and good for them. They got rewarded with a good pick. I think it also sends a message to a lot of teams that are perennially picking early, that's not the way you go about your business. It doesn't always work out when you're picking, you know, top 10 all the time. So either kind of straighten your ship, develop and draft and develop well, and quit being in the middle of the road, so to speak. So I have no problem when teams like that get rewarded every once in a while, although my colleagues don't tend to think the same way.
Hey, Berkey, I know from watching him, he has a lot of opinions. Strong opinionated Brian Burke, but he's a great guy, and I'm sure Yuki said a fantastic guy to work with as well. Moving forward with the junior hockey landscape in regards to, I guess, the drafting or just the scouts seeing these players, because I've noticed some of the leagues, right? The QMJHL, the WHL, the OHL, when are they going to start? They have proposed dates. OHL had December, and now all the way to February. And I spoke to a few OHLers and said, we just want to get back. But has the landscape of junior hockey changed or is changing because of this pandemic?
Well, it will have changed by the time we get through it, whenever that is. I mean, the Quebec League has found it difficult to continue to play, although the Maritimes really seem to be getting along well, and they're involved in a regular schedule there. The bubble situation, if they're going to try with some of the red zone teams in Quebec, we'll see how that plays itself out. But looking at the Western League and the Ontario Hockey League, yeah, it's going to change the complexion of the draft for sure. But what these leagues are going to look like once this is all said and done, it's going to be different, no question. How different? You know, I think only time will tell.
And the thing is, time will tell, and the time will tell for also the NHL, because the January 1st proposed start date, everyone wants to know if it's going to happen, and if it's going to happen with realignment, Canadian bubble. Obviously, you can't say too much, as you know, of course. But what have you been hearing about the NHL return to play? Will there possibly be a Canadian bubble, a realignment of divisions? Just touch upon it as much as you can, of course.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not privy to anything else that you haven't read on the internet, but I do think that there's a situation where, you know, this year is going to be unique once again, and hopefully everything is going to return back to normal for 21-22. Having said that, it does give you the opportunity to experiment with some things. You know, Berkey, again, I'll defer back to Berkey, and always talks about the travel schedule and how that may change as a result of what's going to happen here in the pandemic moving forward. And that's probably a good thing for the league and its players. But I'd love to see an all-Canadian division. I think that'd be amazing. You know, keep the travel north of the border. If and when you have to, you know, start moving into a different conference, into conference play. Hopefully the border situation is cleared up by then. But I'd be all for that, especially in this, what's going to be a modified year anyways. I'm hoping that that's what takes place. It'd be great for our company. It'd be great for the competition, be great for Canadian fans everywhere, coast to coast, to be able to say, if you live in Victoria, BC, and you cheer for the Montreal Canadiens, to watch them go up against Vancouver on a more regular basis. So I'm hoping that all comes to fruition. What they do in the States, really, it's so widespread there with the pandemic, how they're going to be able to work through that, and maybe a modified bubble system might be the way that it goes. That sounds like a pretty good plan. And then playing teams back-to-back consecutively, having teams move in and out of the bubble to try and keep things as safe as possible. So kind of like where the thinking's at right now. I'm looking forward to the execution of it.
Absolutely. And aren't we all looking forward to the execution? Because the bubble from Toronto, Edmonton, they did well. I thought they did really, really well. No cases. Everyone, I guess, for the most part, from what we know anyways, respected the laws and the rules and what was in place, which is great to see. For yourself though, Sam, you started and you've done a few things, of course. Would you ever like to ever go back and dabble into play-by-play again? Or, right now the status quo, you're good to go and everything's working out fine?
Well, I like what I do right now. I mean, if I could, until I retire, call junior hockey games and cover the draft, I'd be really happy with that. I mean, that's kind of where I've established my relationships. It's where my network works best. I enjoy the work, in and of itself. So I would hope that I could keep that job until they kind of kick me out of there, or until I retire. That would be the goal. But I think I learned pretty quickly that I wasn't really a good play-by-play guy. Some of what happens in this business is recognizing what you're good at, what you're not good at, where the opportunities exist, taking advantage of those opportunities, and making it difficult for your employer to get rid of you. So I hope I'm in that space right now where I've made it difficult for them to get rid of me, and I'm really happy with what I'm doing.
A couple of my idols within Sportsnet are Tim and Sid. Sid, fellow, I should say, Radio Humber alumni at Humber College, and I've tweeted at them a few times, and we've went back and forth through via Twitter. But how fun is a work environment, just even being on their show, Tim and Sid and those guys, like having all these guys around you that you just get along with? It just makes the broadcast and just the whole experience just so much more fun, smooth, and just a great place to be at, isn't it?
Yeah, well, lucky to be able to get on and work with those guys. I mean, I kind of grew up with them in the industry. Tim is actually a distant relative of mine. Sid was one of the guys who, even as a younger guy, helped train me when I first moved over to the Score. So I've known those guys for a long time. They've created an unbelievable brand. They're really good at what they do. And I think, moving forward, as long as they're happy to have me on, I'm happy to be a part of it. But, they don't dabble too much in the junior hockey side of things. So we don't get to maybe see each other as much as I would like. But every time they come calling, I'm more than willing to answer the call, and I enjoy being on their show. They do an unbelievable job.
Can't leave you, Sam, without talking about a little bit of the Toronto Blue Jays. Such stuff going on with them, and Ross Atkins and Mark Shapiro. And there's so much moves that possibly can be made this offseason with the Toronto Blue Jays. And they got a few guys that help them, and Jonathan Villar, one of them, and a few other pitchers as well. They just signed Robbie Ray to a 1 year, $8 million. What can you expect from the Jays offseason that can possibly translate to the regular season? And could this be obviously not the year? There's still a lot of time to grow, a lot of young bucks in that organization. But do you see them truly moving forward in the right direction?
Well, I think they can take a Toronto Maple Leafs approach and look at what's going to be a truncated season for baseball and really just try and take advantage of that. Maybe sign some guys over money and on really short-term deals. But, all the stuff that you're hearing that's out there, that's typical winter meetings type of talk. When something actually happens, then that's when I'll believe it, and that's when you're better able to assess. But, a lot of times all that talk really doesn't turn into anything. So we'll see. We'll see how that all kind of plays itself out. But I think when it comes to the Blue Jays, decent year to get into the playoffs this year, a real opportunity, I think, to keep their core group together and go out and spend a little bit more on free agency in the short term, and then kind of get back maybe in the 22 season to maybe be in more of a situation where they're on that long-term plan and want to be a perennial contender.
And finally, Sam, once again, I appreciate you coming on, but for the advice, like for myself, for young broadcasters that are even in school, or myself that's not in school, but has been in the business technically for around 5 to 7 years now, dabbled in radio stations, was with a few soccer organizations, hockey organizations, obviously now with the Oakville Blades in the Junior A ranks. What can you say to myself and to just other guys and girls coming up in the business, the best advice to get to where you are and to get to where they want to be one day in the future?
Well, do whatever you can. I think that's the first thing. And then the second thing I'd say is take advantage of all your opportunities. Don't expect to get paid. Don't expect to make a lot of money in the business. I would say to those who are on the social media side of things, I don't know much about it, but that's obviously a space in which you can make some headway. And I'd also say when it comes to your career, just take advantage of every opportunity. Even if it's not part of what you think is your end goal, a lot of times we take a path that zips and dives and weaves into places that we don't expect it to go, but are ultimately helpful for your career. So, take advantage of the opportunity. Don't expect to make a lot of money. Take advantage of your social media opportunities. and really just continue to work hard, continue to work towards your goal, even if the thing you're working at isn't what you think your end goal should look like.
Listen, Sam, a lot of people, a lot of guys in your position don't really take the time and do this for guys like myself that are trying to come up in the business. I'm humbled, I'm honored, and I do appreciate you taking the time to talk to me, and it does go a long way for myself, so I really do appreciate it.
No problem, Nick. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. Thanks.
Awesome, everyone. This was episode number 21 of Mamma Mia! This is Fire Talk with Sportsnet CHL and NHL Draft Analyst Sam Cosentino. Follow us on all social media platforms. More Instagram Lives and more episodes coming up on the horizon as well. So please stay tuned. Everyone, stay safe out there. And Mamma Mia!
Now Davis takes it and looks to come the other way. Davis is in, trying to drive, and he will look to go across. Good play to Davis, though, to get it right back to him. He goes down low to Israels. Centering, it's there. Scores! Stevie! Steven Whittle scores his first OJHL playoff goal for the Oakville Blades. This game is opening up in a big way for both teams. Ricketts centering, what a pass, Israel's breakaway, the move, scores! What a goal for the Alaska Fairbanks commit, the assistant captain, Harrison Israels, with an absolute dandy. Down low to Lyons, Jack Lyons centering, scores! The double jacks combine as that puck popped up like a jack in a box. And it's Jack Ricketts from Jack Lyons. 6-1 on the 40th shot of the game. It's all Oakville.
Blake Smith hits it in. A chance here can develop, but the Blades will look to take it. And Ricketts finds Israels. Breakaway Israels. A chance. Backhand. Rebound. Scores! And the Oakville Blades win it here in Toronto. Blades win. Blades win. Blades win.
That was Mamma Mia! This is Fire Talk with Nicholas Fiore. Thank you for watching and stay tuned for the next episode.